Hey everybody, welcome to Drive-Thru Review 388. Today we're going to talk about Sylveon. Now this is a new design from Shady Torbay, published by Z-Man Games. And he is well known, and the only thing he publishes, it seems like, are solitaire or two-player cooperative games. He came out with a game several years ago called Onirim, and then also Urbion, which had a different name. I forget what the other name used to be. And now this is his third game in the Oniverse. So these are set in sort of dreamlike landscapes. I know Onirim had, it was basically a dream and you're trying to escape the dream. This one is sort of similar to that, but what you're trying to do is keep the forest alive and protected from basically the big fire monster that's going to come and burn down the entire forest. So if you can last through a deck of cards and keep the forest in sort of full bloom, then you're going to win the game. Otherwise, if the forest is burned down or you get to the end of the game and the forest completely isn't healed, then you're going to lose the game. Now this is very different from these first two games, Onirim and Urbion. So you can see the sort of lineage between Onirim and Urbion definitely, because it's like a single deck of cards and you're kind of picking and choosing and sort of drafting your choices as the cards are revealed and putting cards in certain places. It works. The games are very different. I would definitely recommend looking at either of those games, but this is definitely a departure. So let's take a look at how this one works and I'll tell you what I think of it. So you can see here I've actually set up a play area, which is unlike his previous two games. You had a little bit of this kind of thing in Urbion where you had these kind of columns that you set cards into, but this is a definite board and some progression and movement and space and everything like that, which the original game didn't have. So the one thing I wanted to show you though before we look at that is the upgrade to components, so to speak, on his games. They used to be in these little tiny, card boxes with just a small little deck of cards and that was it. But now they've kind of gone full blown. I just want to show you this cool sort of box insert or inlay where you're opening the forest here, and then you do this, and then you've got the rule book, and then you've got here slots for the cards. I know they redid Onirim with a similar type of box like this, and you've got the little fire monster in this case, which is actually a little sort of mini expansion or variant that you can use to actually use him and put him on some of those fire cards. So let's take a jump into how the game works. Now, there is two modes to the game. There's a basic game and an advanced game. I would say play the basic game maybe one time just to kind of get the gist of a turn flow, but then throw it out. It's not really a game, I don't think. I don't think it's worth playing. Now the advanced game, on the other hand, a little different story, but we'll get to that in the review. Now the game also comes with two expansions as well as sort of a mini expansion that you can add into any of the expansions or even just the basic game with this little guy here. You have a little bit of a card draft beforehand, and you add in a bunch of more special ability cards into your main deck here, which you can see has a variety of different cards. So you've got different animals that you can play. These are little fountains. You'll see some trees. You can see it's got the little tree icon down there. And again, you can see the art is whimsical. I mean, some people may not like it. Some people might love it. I like this one. It's got sort of a watercolor feel. It is a little bit of a departure from his previous two games, but I like to see that. It's got some different types of, not just abstracted, surrealist, ethereal beings, but grounded in reality types of things, but not necessarily reality, right? So here you've got an owl, which helps you draw cards. You can see that. So you're going to have this deck of cards, and it's not going to be all these cards because you're going to draft some of these and some of these won't get chosen. And then you're going to have here, these are the fire cards, and these are going to come out. So the way that the drafting works is you're going to take off and make basically 4 columns with these cards, and then you're going to flip over these actual forest cards here. So you actually make a stack of these, and then during the process, I'm not going to get into super detail, you're going to actually eliminate columns based on these numbers here. So as you draft, some of the columns are going to get built up, and you're going to choose them, and you're going to really start to consider which special abilities you add into your deck. Because as you saw here, here's some of the animals. These are different special abilities that they're going to give you. And then you've got these big fountains. Let's find a big size fountain here. Well, that's a tree. Let's find it. So here's a big fountain. So this you can see has a little bit higher defense, and you're going to be using those to block some of the fire that's going to come out. So as those columns kind of shrink and grow from you choosing them and then them getting kind of randomly destroyed by, I keep drawing 4s, that's funny, from these cards here, that's a really critical part of the game, and I think some people might not like that. They don't like to draft unless you really know what's going on, and the draft is I wouldn't call it time consuming, but you're going to spend a few minutes drafting and considering that. But I'll just spoil it right away. I love that part of the game. So after you've drafted your deck of cards, you're going to draw 8 of these, and you'll have a hand of 8 to start. And then every round simply going to consist of flipping over the top 4 cards of each of these decks, or the top card of each of these 4 decks, I should say. And these are going to consist of a variety of different things. So let's take a closer look at what some of these will do. So the first most basic type of card you can see here is a fire card, and it's of strength 1. You might have other cards here. This is a strength 3, and if you are playing with the variant where you include the little fire demon guy, but it makes the game a lot harder, I'll just tell you that right away. And then sometimes you'll actually have a strength 0 card. And then there are also some special ability cards that the fire can generate. So we're going to see this here. So this one will actually force you to either discard 1 card randomly or discard 2 cards of your choice from your hand into your discard pile. So you can see it's got a letter here, A, and there's A, B, C, D, and they're going to go in that order. So typically you're going to resolve things top to bottom, but you're also going to break that rule by doing any A's first before, for example, any B's. Now B is discard 1 card out of your discard pile out of the game randomly, or do 2 of your choice. And then we'll go on to the next one here. And then C will actually upgrade any of the existing fire cards, and I'll explain that in a second, but you're basically going to increase the strength of any of these yellow fire cards that are out. And then finally here we have D, and D is going to trigger a left-hand movement. So let's take a look at the fire movement, what the fire is actually going to do, and how these upgrade and movement cards are going to deal with things. Forget about any special abilities. Let's say we just draw fire cards. Everything is going to move 1 column to the left. You can kind of see these sort of invisible columns that we've created here with these forest cards. Now anytime that one of these cards goes over here and would sort of move off the board, you can take a look at the strength. Then you have to basically burn down 2 cards, so cards equal to the strength. Now you can get cards again, you can get forest cards to sort of heal the forest as you're going through and trying to defend the fire. But you're trying to really block these from getting too far over, and if you ever have to flip over one of these cards and you can't, then you're going to immediately lose. So that's what the strength means. Now again, I talked about the upgrade to strength, the C card. So you're going to take and bump up with these stacks of cards here any of these yellow fires that come up. So you can see there's a 2, and so I can take one of these cards. So these are 2 and 3, and then there are 4 on the back. The highest they can get to is 4. So I'll go ahead and upgrade these. Now this is a 2 here, so I'll go ahead and change that to a 3, and then this will actually get discarded and this becomes a 3. Now this 3 here that I just put out, you can see this is now sort of a red fire. These can't get upgraded, so you just get like kind of a 1-step upgrade. Now if there's any 0s out there, instead of them becoming a 1, you'll notice that I didn't have any 1s in here. The 0s jump right to a 4. So that's pretty cool, because the 0s, you're like, oh, I'm not worried about the 0, but then boom, it becomes a 4. So you kind of are forced to worry about the 0s. So again, the C's are going to happen before the D's. So you're going to upgrade all these. Let's pretend that happened. And then the D is going to give everybody a bonus movement. So before you do your movement for the turn, everything actually is going to move already anyway. So these are going to move like this, and this one that we upgraded. And then once you resolve that, then they're going to move again like they normally would. So bam, right away you can see we would have upgraded all of these, and they would have jumped pretty far forward there. So now we have to worry about putting in blockers and things. So the fire turn, if you will, is simply flip over the top 4 cards, resolve any effects, and then move anything over 1 to the left, again destroying any force that you might have to. So like I said, you start with 8 cards in your hand, and then before you start your turn every round, you're going to draw 3 cards. So you had 3 cards to your hand, and then you're going to be able to play cards. Well, here we can see the water droplet, and that is the cost to play the card. And like many multi-use card games, you have to discard that number of cards to be able to play it. So if I wanted to play this level 4 tree, let's say I wanted to just put it down here for some reason in this bottom row, it's going to cost me 3 other cards that I have to discard. Now, you will go through your deck a couple of times, and anytime you go through your deck, you'll reshuffle it, but you'll have to remove some cards out of the deck permanently from the game. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. That can be a good thing to get rid of some cards that are not as useful towards the end of the game. So what you're going to be doing is playing as many cards as you want. And you can also see here are some different special abilities, different types of cards. Like I said, you've got the forest here, and then you've also got, do I have any fountains? No fountains. Okay, I've got some fountains here in a second. Let's find a fountain. So this is a little weenie fountain here. You can see this actually costs 0, but it has a defense of 1. Now when you play a fountain, or a forest for that matter, you can put it in one of these sort of invisible slots as long as it's not occupied already by another card. So let's quickly go over the different types of cards that you have to play, starting with the fountains. Okay, so fountains are basically your defense, your warriors that are trying to block back the fire. Now you can see here is the defense value versus the fire value. And this isn't going to do us a whole lot of good here because this is going to move in, this is going to consume this on its following phase and destroy this and keep moving forward. Now if we had a higher strength card, then this would just get consumed and this 4 would beat the 2. Now if you ever have a tie, then it's going to destroy both. But anytime one of your fountains is destroyed, you get to immediately draw another card off the top of your deck. So you might just put a card out. I mean, that's a freebie card if you're really searching for maybe a forest or some other type of special ability card. So it's not the end of the world to actually sacrifice cards in such a way. But that's your fountains. That's kind of your front line of defense. Now the next type of card you might put out here on the board are these forest cards. And you can see there's the cost there, and all of these have a 0 defense, so they're going to immediately get destroyed. But at the end of the game, you can see the little forest number here. You'll be able to replenish that number of burned down forests at the very end of the game. And again, you have to live through all the decks and again have all of these on their bloom side or their healthy side. Now let's talk about some of the different special ability cards that you can play. Now these won't go out here onto the board. You'll play them for their cost and put them in the discard pile. Now the first type of card I'm going to show you actually interacts with the forest as they are out there during the game, not just at the end of the game. Now you can see here, you can get +2 to recovering your forests here, but you can, or you can get +1 per forest card that you have out there. So you can see it costs 0, but the number of forests that you have out here is going to help you replenish these during the game, and that's going to help you from probably losing the game, allowing you to catch back up towards the end of the game. Now here's a card that's going to cost you 1, but you get to draw 3 cards, and so that's kind of nice if you're looking for something in your deck. This one, it costs you 1 and itself, and it gives you +3 sort of mana that you can spend to play more cards. Now these here, this one allows you, costs 1, it allows you to look at the top 2 cards of each of these fire decks and then put them back in any order that you wish. And this can be very crucial and very handy to prevent especially those C and D cards that again upgrade these and move these forward quickly. You can keep those buried down until you can kind of replenish your hand size and get a little bit of hand advantage over the game, so you can deal with some of the stuff, because this particular card is the only card that you can play before the fire kind of takes its turn. So after revealing the top 4 cards of those different decks, you can actually play this, for free, and then just zap one of those cards right away. So these are very crucial. Again, zapping maybe a larger fire or one of those special ability cards. Now this one you can play for 1 and allows you to discard 1 card off the top of each of the fire decks. Pretty cool. And then this one here, you pay for 1 and allows you to just go ahead and zap a fire right away without any, you don't have to put a fountain or anything in front of it. And this one here is pretty interesting. This is a really cool card actually, because you can set things up. Let's put a big fountain down here and let's take a look at that. So 1, 2, 3, yeah, that'll work. So I've got my 4 fountain here. So it's going to eat up this one and this one, but let's say this one is, there's nobody in front of it, or I've got a forest that I don't want to get burned down. So I can play this and then move a single card 3 orthogonal spaces. So you can't move diagonal, but I can go 1, 2, 3, and then they're going to get all eaten up, hopefully, by that large fountain. So that's pretty much how you play the game. Again, you're trying to prevent the fire from coming in, keeping your trees alive, and so on. And in traditional sort of Onarim and Urbion fashion, there are a couple expansions that you can add in. I only tried the first one, so I'll just talk about that. During the drafting phase, you can add these other special animal cards that'll do all kinds of different things. But then here you have some of these betrayal cards, and these sort of attach themselves to a column that you have to draft. So when you draft them, you might have some good cards in there, but you're going to have this go into your deck. And then when you draw it, it's basically a dead card that you can get rid of, or you can get rid of another card and stuff. So they're, little sort of animals that betray you, or they're working for the fire and that kind of thing. But they do give you some cool special abilities to kind of counteract that. And that's typically how his expansions work. They're like, here's some cool stuff, and then also some bad stuff to balance that. And then of course you've got this little guy here, where if he lives on this card, it's going to destroy the fountain no matter what. And if anybody ever gets to this side with this on it, then it's going to immediately lose the game for you. So that is pretty much the game. Okay, so that is Sylvion. What do I think of it? Well, as I said during the walkthrough, I don't recommend the basic game, but I think that's really there just to kind of teach you how to play the game and sort of the flow and process of the game. But I would go ahead and jump right into the advanced game, maybe give the basic game one play just to kind of get your feet wet. But the advanced game is fun. It's really, really awesome. Now, people are gonna immediately ask me, which one do you like better, Oneirim or Urbion or this game? I would probably say, it's really hard to say. They're all very close and very similar, but I'd probably go Urbion, this one, and then Oneirim, but this has some stuff that's different than the other two games that I really, really like, so let me just talk about that. It has the idea of the hand management, which you don't really have in those other games. You kind of do, and it's very difficult to explain because they're not like other games. But this one feels more like a traditional multi-use card game hand management thing, which I love that kind of stuff. So you've got to really take some stock in where you're at in the game and what sort of the situation looks like, because you might have a ton of fire on the board. But you got to be very careful about what you do as well to combat that, because you want to get that big hand size of cards to be able to purchase and pay for all the abilities and the fountains and things. You only draw 3 cards on your turn, which might sound like a lot actually, but it's not. You need to be able to keep a good amount of cards out to keep yourself nimble and flexible is what it comes down to, and really conserve and use those special ability cards when it's necessary. Because like I said in the walkthrough, the C and D fire cards that can increase the fire and then move the fire one space quicker on a turn, they're going to hose you up. Those are your 2 worst enemies, because you can have a big fountain set up that's like level 4 strength, and then everything gets upgraded to a 4, so the first fire that hits it is going to take everybody out. And now you wasted your 3 cards to put that out, and everything else is going to march right in, or you've got to spend more cards even to get that out. So you got to really consider and be careful about when you're playing some of those zap cards that do the instant zap, and you really want to kind of dig for those. So I like that part of the game I really enjoy, where you've got, you know, managing the card count in your hand and when to use the special abilities, when to sort of figure out, you can kind of again reorganize the fire cards. That's really, really cool. And I love the first expansion. It seems like that, it kind of, I don't know what it is. All 3 of his games, my favorite way to play it, I haven't played the second expansion yet, but my hunch is going to tell me my favorite way to play it, the most advanced, like standard game plus the first expansion. That adds just like that extra amount of choice and stuff in the game. So I really enjoy it. And you know, to me, the thing that maybe puts Urbion above this one is it's just so weird. It's so different and strange. And this one feels as balanced as Urbion, whereas Oneirim feels a little bit less in your favor. Of course, and Oneirim, in my opinion, you kind of have to have the first expansion to have it be really balanced. But I don't know, it's difficult. So with his style of games, I always feel like I did good if I got to the end of the deck and I made it all the way through, and not that I didn't necessarily win, like, because remember in this case you have to have all of the forest cards healed. But if I only have 1 or 2 burnt, I feel like, okay, you know, luck wasn't on my side, but I played pretty good, lots of skill, and I did everything as best I could. But you know, luck was on my side, and the next time I play, I'll win. So I think my win rate, well, it's 1 out of 6 is my win rate. So that's probably pretty good, and I would get better at it as I play. But I had a couple of games where I was very close, where I was only 1 or 2, forests burnt. So, and that's throwing out those kind of wonky basic gameplays. There's a lot of luck and swinginess in that. You don't really have anything to mitigate, which is why I don't like to play the basic game. You got to really jump into that advanced game. So yeah, if you like these kind of solitaire games, I don't play his games 2-player, but the rules are pretty cool. Like everybody gets their own hand of cards, and you have a little shrunken down hand, and then you take turns playing. And so you could totally play any of his games 2-player. Nice little partner co-op style of game. Yeah, I think if you're a fan of this kind of game, you got to pick this up anyway. It's a good addition to his line, and I know he's got 1 more coming out this year, I think, and then I think they're going to reprint Urbion in the new format. I know they already did Oneirim, so take a look at it for sure. Definite recommendation for me. Thanks.